He is having a lot of fun and helping a lot of people while doing so. So it brings me great pleasure to turn this call over to none other than Dr. Craig Bythewood. Dr. Bythewood, are you on the line?
Yes, I am, Ms. Dyer. Thank you very much for introducing me. So welcome, everyone, to a talk with the finance doctor, your RX for Forex. I hope everyone's having a wonderful Thursday, and I give my best to all of your families that you are loving on by coming to this call so that you can begin to increase your view and awareness of economic empowerment. So let me remind everyone that I defined economic empowerment as personal finance on steroids. Personal finance is simply any scenario that you have to involve yourself in, any transaction which involves money coming into your household or money going out of your household, that's personal finance. But we recognize that personal finance is the only area of our society where the people who give you the information about the product are the same people who are selling you the product. So we have an economic incentive to go beyond personal finance and to understand it for ourselves. And that is what I define as economic empowerment. When you have the ability to be able to have it for yourself, to understand the why behind the what, to put yourself in the mindset of understanding what the institution may be trying to get you to do so that you can respond. You know, there's an African proverb that says, how does an ant eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And I like to really take the complexities of economics, the complexities of personal finance, and really break it down to its core components. And that gives us a leg up in being able to understand, excuse me, whatever strategy the situation calls for in terms of the institution. So one of the things that happened throughout the week is that I noticed that a lot of people were asking questions or making comments that made me think that we probably could benefit by understanding a little bit better the infrastructure that we're operating in. Now, as an academician, but also a business person and also a consultant, I'm right in the middle in terms of how much background information we need. I think that sometimes when we look at situations like this, where somebody's handing you a mechanism to bring wealth and abundance to your household, when someone says, here's the vehicle to do it, there's a trust issue involved. And oftentimes we ask all these questions, we want to know every little component of it. I remember we were doing a Be Your Own Bank event not too long ago. And there was a gentleman there who was a guest. And this particular gentleman had been a trader in his past. So he was asking all these specific questions, well, what percent is this and what percent is that? And the questions were very fair questions. But in my opinion, they were just going a little bit deeper than what you need to go in order to be able to understand the strategy, understand the vehicle, and be able to use it. So I posed this question to the young man. I said, excuse me, sir, do you have a cell phone? And the person, of course, said yes. And I asked, well, do you use the apps on that phone? He said yes. And then I posed the question, well, how many of those apps have you broken down the coding? How many of them do you know what the back end configuration is on how the app gets on your phone? All you do is click on the app and use it. So that's how we have to look at this sometimes, is we want to click on the app and use it, but we do want to understand the background information because literally we're jumping into graduate school here. We went, some of us, from not investing at all to investing in one of the most complex markets that are out there. There are markets that are much simpler than this one, but this is the one that provides us the best vehicle to make a lot of money with a small amount of time and an adequate amount of instruction. So we're in the right place. We're trading in the right market. So this conversation is about pausing for a second and revisiting some of the situations that have led to this infrastructure. And I also want to say that I will also be in this conversation covering some of the questions that were asked in some of the live calls. Now, several of the people in the live calls made the comment. I apologize, I lost my Zoom picture for a second. Can someone unmute and tell me that you can hear me so I know I'm still involved in the
I can
Zoom
hear you,
call?
bro.
Excellent, thank you.
I can hear you.
Beautiful. So basically what I was saying is that several people have asked questions in the chat based on the fact that they will not be able to participate in this call based on the country they live in or based on their work schedule. Let me pause on that pause. If you're having an issue attending the call because of your work schedule, isn't that a great motivation to put yourself in a position where this is your job so it can be 1 hour a day instead of 10 hours a day? Just saying. So many people in that scenario mentioned that they wanted to submit questions or have questions be answered on this form and then listen to the recording. So just in case you were not on that call, from now on, if you have a question that you would like to ask and you will not be able to attend the actual call, I want you to feel free to send an emailed question to that email address. So let me make sure I typed that correctly. I did. So it's literally drcraigbythewood@gmail.com. So please feel free to do so. And I received a question today that I will answer. So I recently turned 53. And I run around saying 53 is the new 23. Now, I do that for a variety of reasons. One reason is because I recognize that what you see is what you will be. So if I believe that I'm 23, I won't necessarily be 23, but I will take on some of the characteristics I had when I was 23. And since I am the only 50-plus-year-old in my 18 and over flag football league, I think that I need to convince myself of that so that I can continue to perform in that arena. So I said all that to say this. One of the things that I do to help me perform in an 18 and over environment, being 53 years old, is I drink a vegetable juice every day. And the reason is very simple. Vegetables have a lot of nutrients. So by putting it in a juice, I get way more nutrients at one time than I would if I sat and ate, because I get full faster than if I drink the juice. So bottom line is to ensure that I have enough nutrients to fuel all of the demands I put on my body. I drink a vegetable juice every day. Now, in order for me to be a vegetable buyer, it's important that I have a mechanism to purchase the vegetables. Well, just so happens, ladies and gentlemen, I do not know any vegetable farmers. If I did, it might be inefficient for me to pick up the phone and say, okay, where's your farm? Okay, let me come to you and I'll buy the vegetables. Plus, since I only use a small amount each day, the unit that I purchase from the farmers might not match the units in which they package them, so it's a disconnect. So one of the things that makes it easy for me to be able to, as a vegetable consumer, purchase vegetables is there's a middleman, there's an intermediary, there's a middle person, there's a middle entity that's going to stand in between me, the vegetable buyer, and them, the vegetable seller, and provide a marketplace where we can meet up. And that marketplace is called Publix. It is a supermarket. But what it really is it is a broker between buyers and sellers. It's a broker between the buyer of the vegetables and the seller of the vegetables. Why are you talking about vegetables? Because sometimes when you and I talk about the foreign exchange market, we go like this. We just had someone to say, I have a silly question. That is a lie. That is a bold-faced lie. The only dumb question is the question you do not ask. This is a very complex field that we're working in, but due to the genius of Tasha Dyer and Gerald Rogers and Craig Bythewood, we're making it as easy as it possibly can. So the question any question you ask is relevant. So always walk in your interrogative swag and know that the question that you ask is good. Plus, I've said this before, there's a psychological and spiritual principle called the collective consciousness, which says when people get together, their minds and their energies are linked. And so if you get a question, that question that came into your spirit, other people whose mics are muted have the same exact question. So never challenge yourself on a question, ask it, because it's guaranteed that the people in the room or the people on this call will have the same thing. Think about my history. For 26 years, I've been teaching classes, and I found the truth of this over and over and over and over again. Anytime someone asks a question, either in that form at that moment or later on or with an email, they'll say, I had the same question. It always happens. There is no such thing as a silly question. The only silly question is the question that you don't ask. So all I'm saying to you is this. I am taking this very simple Publix supermarket example. Let me make it more general in case you live in a place that doesn't have Publix. Supermarket, grocery store example, because we do that all the time. We're comfortable with that. There's no tension. There's no tightening of shoulders about that. But it's the same thing. It is a broker in between buyers and sellers of different products. I just happen to use vegetables. So the same thing happens in the financial markets. They're buyers and they're sellers. Now think about it. Think about this beauty. Tangent to my tangent to my tangent. You and I have been handed a vehicle where we can be both. Think about that for a second. My analogy is about the intermediary bringing in the buyers and the sellers. We're both. Depending on the trade that we take, we can be buyers and sellers. But understand, and Ms. Dyer states this a lot, when we're watching these currency pairs, we're watching the indices, all we're doing is managing the opportunity of witnessing the buyers and sellers of institutional investors. The movements in the market, it's just buyers and sellers of the currency pairs and or the indices. That's all, or whatever it is, the stock, whatever we're looking at, the foreign exchange platform is just showing buyers and sellers. And because they're institutional, there are a lot of them, it is what moves the market. So I said all that just to say this. A lot of people get real caught up in broker. Oh, well, I got to get a broker. What's a broker? Oh my God. It's just the supermarket for the financial markets. And quite frankly, I said this a couple classes ago, because the United States Great Depression was so great, we made a big deal to make sure there's always a market. We don't want vegetable drinkers going directly to the farmers. It provides inefficiency in the market, and it allows the government to not have their eyes on the process. So any financial market that takes place anywhere, but especially in the United States of America, there has to be a middle entity. That is the broker. And if you think about it, both I Am Academy and the Be Your Own Bank movement, we're very aggressive about not telling you which broker to use, because it's very personal. It's very personal. I've known people to pick brokers based on who the educator uses or what someone else is using, and it turns out that there are features about that broker that doesn't match with their lifestyle. You have to pick your own broker. Plus, there's a little bit of a conflict of interest for us to recommend a broker. So you have to pick your own broker. Now, I'm sure that most of us have been out of the country. I know a few business partners that haven't, but for the most part, we've been out of the country. And even if you haven't been out of the country, you've been to the I was about to say the apartment. You've been to the airport. You've been to the airport. So you've probably seen what I'm about to describe. When you get to the airport, you will see a booth, a small booth, and it says on the top, currency trader. I grew up an only child, so I've always been an observer. So when I go to the mall, when I go to stores, I observe things. So I've always noticed that even before I knew what it was. Currency trading. Now, when you go to that little booth, or when you see that little booth, or when you notice that little booth, you'll see this. There'll be several currencies listed, or there'll be several flags of different countries to represent the currency. Then, next to each currency, I didn't say currency pairs, just a currency. Next to each currency, or next to each flag, there are going to be two numbers. Two numbers. Now, the two numbers are sometimes pretty close to each other, but they're still two numbers. Now, those two numbers that you'll see next to each currency at the currency trader booth, those numbers are called bid price, ask price. Now, after I explain this, it will really make what we're dealing with our brokers make so much better sense. Now, here's how it works. The bid price is how much that currency booth is going to pay for any currency they buy. The bid price is how much that currency booth is going to pay for any currency that they buy. So if I take money out of my pocket and I give it to them, they're buying the money. So the bid price is how much they're going to pay. But in order for me to give them their money, I'm exchanging it. It's called a currency exchange booth. So when I give them my currency, they're going to give me back the other currency that I'm buying. And when they sell it to me, the price in which they sell it is ask. So the bid price is what they're paying for my money. The ask price is what they're going to sell it to me for. Now hear me. I've taught this in the past, and people who like to label themselves by saying, I don't have a good memory, guess what? Whatever you believe will be your experience. So if you say if you say you don't have a good memory, you won't have one. Just like if you say you have a good memory, you'll have one. So if you're one of those people that have labeled yourself, you can start saying something different today. So long story short, when I get people who have labeled themselves and then begin to believe that false belief, I say to them, well, here's a good way to remember it. It's never about us. This is a capitalistic society. It's always about the company. So bid and ask is from the perspective of the company, not us, not the individual, but them. Bid is what they pay for when they buy. Ask is what they get when they sell. Now watch this. The reason why, if you know what you're doing, you will always have a job. If you know why you're doing it, you will always be the boss. The reason why there is a difference between the bid and the ask. If you know what you're doing, you will always have a job. If you know why you're doing it, you will always be the boss. To be the boss of this information, the reason why there's a difference between bid and ask is because all day, that's all the currency booth does. That is their purpose. That is, watch this, their profit motive. That's why they exist. Think about it. They got to pay the person sitting there. They have to pay for the booth. They got to pay for rental in the airport. So in order for them to make money, this is what they do. All day, they're buying and selling currency. So when they sell the currency at this price, and then they buy the currency at this price, wait, which currency are you talking about? All of them. When they sell the currency at this price and they buy the currency at this price, this is how they make money. And guess what? Ms. Dyer has told you the story multiple times. That's what she did for a living for the military. And she wasn't even aware that this was a mechanism to make money. That's why she studied the hell out of those charts. And she was like, you used me for all this time to have me doing this, but you never explained to me why I was doing it. So Ms. Dyer was the person who performed that function for the United States Army. So bottom line is ask is what they're going to get when they sell currency. Bid is what they're going to get when they buy currency. Now, I already told you, brokers are put into the financial markets to keep the Great Depression from happening again. By having a standard broker that provides this function where everybody has to go through the broker and not go directly into the individual markets, then we keep a checks and balances. But you have to provide an incentive for the brokers to exist. You have to provide a mechanism for them to pay their employees. You have to find a mechanism for them to handle or be able to finance the margin that they're giving. Now, how many of you have ever purchased a product? I've got a perfect example. Our last event was in Orlando. I remember years ago, I was dating a young lady in Orlando, and she liked this particular steakhouse. So I went to the steakhouse at her house, and it was really good. And I enjoyed whatever, Charlie's Steakhouse, very good. So then, a couple years later, I went to visit her, like kind of reunion kind of thing. I said, hey, let's go to that restaurant again. And we were on International Drive. So we went to that restaurant, and the prices were almost double. I'm like, wait a minute, how could they be double? It was $8 at the Charlie's we went to here, and it's $28 here. How is that? Because International Drive is in a tourist location. So the prices are even higher. I got one that hits even closer to home. The Los Angeles Lakers play in Los Angeles at the Staples Center. The Los Angeles Clippers play in Los Angeles at the Staples Center. Well, I had the opportunity some months ago to go to a Lakers game. I always wanted to see LeBron. So I went to go see the Lakers play, and I went into the driveway to park, and the parking lot said $40. That's how much it cost to park. So then that same night, there was a Clippers game, Los Angeles Clippers. Now, I'm pretty sure even if you don't know sports, you have to know that the Lakers are way more popular than the Clippers. So I happened to leave my car there, and I went and did some socializing in downtown Los Angeles. So when I went to go get my car, they had set up for the Clippers game. So it was the same parking lot, but it cost $25 to park. So the same parking lot was $40 for the Lakers and $25 for the Clippers. Why are you bringing this up? I'm only bringing this up because prices for the same thing costs for prices are different depending on the situation. So what's your point, finance doctor? My point is that's why when Ms. Dyer says, okay, it depends on your broker. Okay, it depends on your spillage. Okay, you have to make adjustments because of your broker, because the same steak in the same city was $20 different. Because the same parking in the same lot was $15 different. So that's what happens with your broker. Depending on which broker you have, depending on what their infrastructure is, they could have different profit margins. They could have a different price. So this is what we refer to when we call the spread. I know all of you already knew the definition, but I'm just giving you some background so we can get it a little more. This is the spread. So some spreads are like this, some spreads are like this. So how do you know? Well, as you continue to build your repertoire and you begin to expose yourself to different brokers, you'll begin to see that. But now you'll know what to look for. Now you'll be able to understand the background behind the brokers. Now, there are two questions that were asked that I want to answer. But before I do that, I want to pause and see if anybody has any questions on this broker spread bid-ask question or comment, I should say. Questions, comments, testimonies. I would prefer that you unmute, but if you have to chat it, I understand. Questions, comments, testimonies. Can you let us know what we should be looking at when we're comparing brokers? I think that's a good question, but I think I kind of gave it to you with my description. The number one variable or the number one set of variables that you want to look at when you're broker is what you care about. So let me look at how I deposit the money. Maybe one of them uses Zelle and you have Zelle. Maybe one of them only uses Bitcoin and you're not comfortable with that. Maybe one of them has a 3-day wait, another one has a 3-hour wait. So look at the deposits. You want to look at the withdrawal. How do I withdraw? Does the withdrawal function match with what I have and what I'm doing? Does it match with my lifestyle? Now, they don't advertise spreads, but that is something that you may be able to determine as you do demos. Or maybe you can do some Google searches on what are some of the brokers that have certain spreads. So those are the three main variables to me. But I have to say this again. It's not about what I say. It's about how you feel. That's like me saying, what's the best thing you should look at to find a wife or a husband? How can I make that decision for you? You got some preferences that I don't have. There's some things I like that you wouldn't like in a spouse. So you have to make that call. Next question. First year trading, how do I properly file? Okay, well that's already on my list. Okay, so one more time before I go to these two questions that I want to answer. Are there any questions, comments, or testimonies about the brokerage situation, about the concept behind brokers? Okay, so there are two questions that were presented to me to address tonight. And I will do the second one first so that I make sure that I have more than enough time for the taxes one, because I think that's going to be more relevant to more people. So the question that was asked of me was, how do I feel about organizations that will provide funding for you to trade? And the specific person that asked the question made a comment about the fact that the one they looked at, they would allow you to keep 70% of your trades. Now, I want to make this very clear. The company. We all know that every company, like we just finished talking about, has a profit margin, has a profit motive. So understand that the individuals are not simply supplying capital, or not simply supplying funding. What they're doing is they're looking for traders. They're looking for people who are good traders. Now, every single website that you look at of a company that funds traders, they will say beginners and experienced traders welcome. And they're not lying, they're telling the truth. But if you're a beginner, there's a certain process that it will take you through. And you have to pass certain tests, you have to do certain things in order to do it. So understand that that's less about me finding a company that's doing it. And that's more about, it's a job, it's a position. You're going to go through their protocols. You're going to use their protocols. And the part that isn't mentioned in any of the websites but is accurate, you have to pay them for the training. You have to pay them to go through the process to be able to do it. So I personally think that if that's something that someone wants to do, I get it, I understand it, I can see value in it, but it doesn't really match what we're doing here. What we're doing here is we're providing a vehicle for you that provides empowerment. And that really is providing a company empowerment. Why should I put myself in a position to go through their protocol, use their protocols, and give them a portion of the money when I can learn these protocols, use these protocols, and I can keep 100% of the money? Bam. Okay, so the question was asked in live trading today about taxes and how you handle taxes. So first of all, let me let you understand that the way taxes work with Forex is that there's a rule called the 60-40 rule. Actually, let me be even more specific. There are two ways in which you can set your taxes up, or you can file your taxes with your Forex income. There are two ways you can do it. One way you can do it is to treat it just like any other income. So it's income that you're going to put just like you would 1099 funds. Obviously, it's not a W-2. It's not coming from an employer, but you would just report that income on your Schedule D, and then you would just pay your normal taxes on it. And I always believe that when you're doing something new with taxes, you want to read the parameters. Yes, you should ask the finance doctor so he can demystify it for you, but you still want to read the fine print. So Section 988 in the IRS tax code is where they cover if you want to file your taxes just like any other income and pay ordinary taxes on it. Now, Section 1258, let me make sure I'm saying that correctly, because 1256. Section 1256 talks about another way of doing it. And what that is called the 60-40 rule. And the 60-40 rule works like this. You can take 60% of the money that you earned, of the income that you earned in Forex, and you can charge it at a capital gains rate. You know, capital gains rates are lower than your personal income tax rate. But the other 40% of it, you have to do that as the regular, ordinary tax rate. So when you do that, there's a separate form that you have to use that's just designed for Forex income, but Schedule D. You know, Schedule D is that separate part of the 1040 where you put anything that's beyond the normal tax form. So for example, if you itemize your deductions, you put that on Schedule D. So on Schedule D, there's a section that says financial market income. And so you simply put in your foreign exchange income. Now, let me recap. Two choices. Treat it as ordinary income, described in Section 988. Choice 2, 60-40 rule. 60% capital gains tax, 40% ordinary income tax. And that's described in Section 1256. Regardless of which one you do, you put your profits or your losses on 1256. Now, I am a firm believer, it only takes you being on one of my calls to know that I believe you have to speak life into your existence. But I'm going to tell you this strategy just in case. Maybe you're talking to somebody who doesn't listen to a Talk with the Finance Doctor. Maybe you're dealing with someone who doesn't come to our live calls and doesn't understand the power of your affirmations. If you have a loss for the year, that will never happen to us because we have a 92% accuracy rate and we use proper risk management. But if you're counseling someone that has a loss, think about it. You can take your losses and you can offset them against your taxable income. In other words, for every dollar of loss you can have, you can offset it against $1 of tax and lower your tax liability. So if you have a loss, it's better to use the first one because ordinary tax rates are higher. So think about it. With us, when we make our money, it's probably better to do 60-40 because 60% is at a lower tax rate. But if you get a tax break, you want to use the higher tax rate. And to me, it's not even about this strategy. But this is what the Be Your Own Bank movement is about. Us thinking through the strategies in a way that benefit us. If he said that's a higher rate for income, then it's going to be a higher rate for loss. So what I'm saying to you is you and I, who will always finish our year in the positive, we're going to do the 60-40 rule. But somebody who doesn't dial in that has a loss, they should use the other one because the ordinary tax rate is higher. Questions, comments, testimonies about these comments about tax? Questions, comments, testimonies? Okay, I would like to thank everyone for your attention. Let me check the chat really quick. Thank you very much for saying that, higher vibration. And I really appreciate the questions. And I want us to continue in this energy of asking questions. So if you are in a situation where you are not able to attend this call live, please put your question in that email and I'll make sure that I address it on the call just like I did tonight. It is always a pleasure to me to deal with this group, to speak to these rectangles. And I want to wish everyone a wonderful Thursday evening. You know, tomorrow's Friday, so there are no live calls tomorrow. So the next time that you and I will meet formally will be Monday morning at 5 a.m., the day after the Super Bowl, the day where most people call in sick, the highest day of the year, us calling in sick, but we're gonna call in rich. We're gonna show up on Monday morning and we're gonna continue to learn and develop our skill so we can continue to find ourselves on the other side of wealth and abundance. I love you all. Really glad to speak to you as always. And this will officially end this call.